Hi, my name is Shane McLaughlin of Perspective Industries. I wanted to take a minute to introduce myself and my company and talk to you a little bit about why I started Perspective, what I would hope to accomplish, and invite you to reach out if you feel that I might be able to help you in your company. I started Perspective Industries in December of 2019 with the whole purpose of being able to coach and help individuals and companies with their people and their processes. I found in my 23 years in the window and door supply industry, one of the biggest things I learned is that the key to great customer experience is having solid, consistent processes and having a team that believes in the whole mission of the company. Those two key ingredients are what make the customer experience the best. As soon as those things don't align, all of a sudden the customer feels it and they feel it pretty fast. For anybody in the Alberta industry, windows and doors has been an interesting one to watch. And I started in it in 97 and I really watched it grow and expand. The competition level grew and expanded. And in that, a lot of stuff got lost in it. So I've worked over the last 10 years with multiple companies trying to work with teams to improve that alignment and improve that purpose to go out and serve the customer. Some successful and some not successful. But all in all, I learned a lot, and that's the whole reason why I started Perspective Industries, because I really think those key ingredients are transferable to every company out there. I also, in 2010, started coaching youth soccer and youth basketball, and started to find a lot of correlations in coaching and business, more so than I see on a lot of consulting blogs and stuff like that. It's really key that if you got a really good coach, then you could have a exemplary team. Too often in businesses, the quote unquote coach ends up becoming a team member. They become just an amplified person that does the job. And they lose the focus on what really matters, and that's guiding the individuals to become better, to push themselves, to push that envelope, and to continually improve. So, yeah, I've seen in Alberta our companies are struggling financially. Nobody's making a ton of money anymore, and hiring and finding great managers is really tough. So I'm hoping that Perspective Industries can be an alternative course for you to help come in, work with your teams, get them operating more efficiently, get your processes in line at a minimal cost compared to hiring a full-time manager who might just turn into another team member or might not work out. Perspective Industries is built on the same foundations that I was built on. Four key pillars that I believe you need in both sports and in business: honesty, integrity, respect, and trust. And those are intertwined. Each one is needed to get the other. Nothing is given, and as soon as you lose one of those items, the whole structure falls down. So it's about being consistent in your message, and it's about being tied to those four foundations for every decision that you're making, every interaction with your customer. And sometimes that's hard, sometimes that hurts. But at the end of the day, your reputation is built on your honesty, your integrity, the respect you have and give, and your trust in people. And I want to be a different type of consulting company. I want to be not the type of consulting company that comes in and tells you a strict process of things that you should do to improve your customer service or to improve your salespeople or to improve I don't want to be that type of consultant. I want to be hands-on, working with your team, understanding the dynamic of the team, and coming up with the best solution that fits. Um, Doing it the other way, I learned from coaching. You have a unique set of players, you have a unique set of talents. You can't have a textbook, here, this is what you do, and it'll work. It doesn't work. It never does. And most companies that have hired consulting firms to come in, they'll have discussions with the top leadership, they'll come up with a plan, they'll say, this is what I think you should do, and they'll walk out the door. And that's the end of it. Great if your company is in a position where you have the leadership that can implement all of that stuff. Unfortunately, most companies aren't in that position. So what I would like to do is come in, talk to the staff members, talk to the management team, get an understanding for what's needed, and then work with the departments, on an ongoing basis, whether it's weekly, whether it's monthly, and really see that those changes start to get implemented, and start to get buy-in from the staff, with the purpose to impact the customers. So that's what I really would like to do with companies. I don't want to take the hands-off approach. I want to take the hands-on approach. It's what I loved doing when I was working in window and door companies. It's what I love doing now with Sluggos, on the sporting side. It's working with the people. I think that's the key. And I think that too many people try to buy in for that quick fix, and it's never a quick fix when it comes to processes and team culture. So if you feel that Perspective Industries can help you, feel free to reach out. You can reach me by cell, you can reach me by email, you can reach me on my website. And I'd love to come in and talk to you about how I might be able to help you. Thanks. Take care. Stay safe. Perspective Industries can add a dynamic to your team, in the respect that it's not a full-time coach. It's not a employee of the company. Right now, in a lot of companies, the staff feels that managers are just proponents of the company, and they're not really there for the staff. They're there for the company. And sometimes, if that's the case, they don't feel like they have a voice. They don't feel like they have a choice. And I think that Perspective Industries can come in, work with those teams, and give them that voice, because I can play that impartial person to the management, as well as to the staff. And I have a unique ability to see the perspective from both sides. I've worked at all levels of a company, from the bottom all the way to the top. Ownership is hard. There's different aspects to it that make it more difficult, that a lot of staff don't see and don't understand. Same as middle management is hard. Same as being a staff member is hard. Every position is a little bit unique and a little bit different. And being able to get those groups to work together is a challenge. A coach's role in an organization is very similar to a coach's role on a sports team. They're not there to do the work. They should be training, pushing the players, and driving them to be better. And depending on the role that you need, will depend on the coach that you have to put in there. If you have a highly experienced team, you don't need a coach that is really focused on training and skill development. Your team already has the skills. You need somebody that's more of a culture type person, somebody that builds the team, somebody that puts them together. And contrary to that, if you have a team that isn't very skilled and doesn't have very much experience, then you need a coach that is more skills oriented. When I was in school, in high school, I played basketball. I started in grade 10. I didn't start in grade 9 or 8. I had a coach in grade 10 that was super fundamental based. He taught everything, and he made you do it perfectly from the scratch. And that's what drove me to become the basketball player I was. Then when I got to the senior team, and I went in grade 12 because grade 11 I wasn't quite good enough, but in grade 12, that coach, he didn't do much skill development. He expected that you had it. But what he did is he pushed you. He drove you to really get yourself better, make the team better, and his passion was in the whole culture. Two different approaches benefited me tremendously. I went in 3 years, I developed to a level that I could play college basketball, where most kids wouldn't have been able to do that. They had to start when they were in grade 7. But it was all because of the coaching that I had, and the way that they kind of pushed me. Yes, my work ethic had something to do with it. If I didn't have that, I never would have got to the level I got to. But without the types of coaches I had, I never would have either. So it's not an easy thing. And I hope with Perspective Industries, I can add that coaching aspect that maybe your company needs. And you might not need it in a permanent way. So having me come in on a weekly or a couple days a week basis to work with team members, work with processes, and really start to develop that, might be the driving force that you need for an incredibly skilled team. And you don't need the cost of a full-time paid manager that you don't really know what to do with otherwise, so you start making them do work. I think that I can add value to a lot of companies by not being a employee of that company, per se. Um, by hiring an outside party to come in and coach your members, you get the value of an unbiased viewpoint. Too often, when you work in a company, you're biased as to the things that you do, and you don't look at it from a customer perspective and a company perspective. It's harder to, as an employee. When I was working for companies, it was hard to. Sometimes it was hard to look at it from the company's perspective. I would always look at it from the customers, and vice versa. Sometimes I couldn't see the customer's perspective. So, I really thought that I could bring value to companies by bringing an outside perspective. And that was the whole reason of the name. Everything I've done in business for the last 15 years, I've constantly used that word. You have to look at it from a different perspective. You have to look at it from the customer's perspective, have to look at it from the management perspective, have to look at it from the employee perspective, always using that word. So Perspective Industries just fit. It was the right name for a company that wants to bring perspective to other customers. My whole reason for wanting to do stuff is strictly because I find that when people feel like they belong to something, they will perform beyond anything you could have imagined. And as soon as they don't feel like they belong, they struggle, and it shows in their work, it shows in their customer service, it shows in everything. So I think coaching a group to find how they belong and to get them understanding each other can really help an organization. I've always seen the correlation of business and sport. When I started coaching sports, I started studying and learning about coaching, and really started to understand different coaches across the eras of sports teams and what made them successful. And it really came down to the same things: process and culture. That's what builds a great organization. Is if you have a good process and a great culture, you have a great company. And you notice I said good process. It doesn't have to be a great process. That's what you drive to. And the process is a reflection of the people that you have working for you. Too often with processes in companies, we just set a process that we think works or that worked for another company. So we bring it in because we don't really know what to do. And we just leave it there and we just tell everybody that's the way it is, do it. Whereas if you really work with your staff on developing that process to make it the best for them, that'll reflect in how it comes across to the customer. And having all levels and different departments in those process discussions really helps to bring the unity across an organization together. So if you're a small company, those are a lot easier discussions because it's 3 to 5 people really getting together, talking about how they do things, how that impacts each other, how that impacts the customer, and then coming up with the best processes. When you get into large organizations, it's a lot more work. And that's why process change in large organizations takes a little bit longer, because it's about getting a bunch of people coming together, and it's about making concessions and finding ways to make it all work. But at the end of the day, as long as the alignment to the end mission and vision are all the same, then you get success because everybody in that room was hired with the same kind of purpose or why, and they're all trying to achieve the same thing. So those concessions become a lot easier because they understand it's what's best for the company. Where you run into problems is when the vision and mission that is put out in the public eye don't align with how the company's actually operating. That's when you get the struggles. That's when you have trouble with getting employees to do things the way that you want them to. You run into all sorts of problems. And it's strictly because you're not driving to what the actual purpose is. So that honesty of putting out what you're actually trying to do is key in building a long-term company. And it's key in getting employees to buy in to do things to make that vision come to light. It's funny because a lot of companies put out the same kind of vision, the same kind of mission, of what they want to get and what they want to achieve. But not always is that company actually trying to do that. They've got underlying reasons that they are making the decisions they're making and doing the things that they're doing. And that comes out. It's not super evident, but it definitely comes out in the way that they're interacting with their customers, when they're interacting with their customers. Working for 23 years in the window and door business, I was successful in making customers want to buy from the companies I worked at. I don't believe it was because of me. I believe it was because I put processes in place that made it easy for the customer to buy the product they needed, easy for the customer to get the service that they needed, and they knew that when they reached out, they were going to get stuff done. And it was consistent. And that's all I did is I just set up a consistent process that made customers feel comfortable and confident buying from me. And most of my customers didn't want to go buy anywhere else. Unfortunately, when I left those companies or when I changed positions, that process kind of fell off because what I was doing was building my own process to help those customers. And as soon as I left the picture, the process fell apart. So, my unique experience at the last company I worked at, I got to build a team to build that process. And doing that showed me that it's possible that if you build alignment in a team, you can get great customer experience. Perspective Industries believes that by making people belong, they can bring their best value to the organization. Their best value is their uniqueness. Every company is unique in its own way and what it's trying to do with customers. If you have the right alignment with your staff, that whole vision, that whole mission gets pushed out to the customers organically. You don't have to spend a fortune on marketing. It's just felt, which is way more impactful. Right vision. I used to say to people that I worked with that if everybody in the company believed in what the company was doing, you would have 400 salespeople out there rather than just 20. I don't know what's more impactful than that. 400 salespeople out there talking about your company, telling people what an amazing place it is, versus 20 people who probably don't believe it either. processes when you're small are pretty straightforward, and you can change them on the fly because you've only got a few people. It's quick discussions and it's implemented. When you get into bigger organizations, it's a lot more work to get a process changed and then to get people to buy into it. And that's the key, is if you just make a process and expect everybody to follow it, they're never going to. They're going to fight it, they're going to push it, or they're going to develop their own and do that in the background, and you won't see it until it comes out down the road. Honesty in an organization, it's a funny one, and every organization is a little bit different. But so often, because we live in a competition world, let's be honest, everything is set up as a competition. We have sales goals that are competition. We have department goals that are competition, and everybody's looking to be the best because that's what drives salaries. That's what drives, right? So if you really want to achieve ultimate success, then you've got to change that focus from a competition standpoint to a value standpoint. So it's about getting your people to know that they're adding value to the organization, adding value to the customer. And as soon as they start to feel that and get recognized for that, it changes the game. But to do all that, honesty is a key. And too often organizations can't be honest with each other internally, and then definitely externally. If so, for windows and doors, I can use those as examples because that's what I come from. If you actually didn't build a window, too many companies believe you can't tell a customer that. That'd be crazy. So you have to make up something, whether it's, somebody on the line dropped the window, or, our supplier didn't get us the correct stuff, or, there's all sorts of excuses that are used. But not just saying, you know what, I forgot to order it, or I put it in the system, but for some reason it just didn't get built, so we're on it. It's a lot of that's the accountability. It's about blaming somebody else, and it causes dissent throughout the organization. If I'm a salesperson and I forget to order a window and I tell the customer, oh, somebody on the shipping dock broke it, so we got to rebuild the whole window. So I think, oh, I've saved my skin, so the customer doesn't blame me. But what happens is the next 4 days from now, 5 days from now, when we rush that window, the shipper goes out there and drops it off, and the customer goes, oh frick, it's about time you got me my window, and I heard you guys busted it. And then that guy says, no, this window was never ordered. Right? So now the customer doesn't know what to believe. He thinks that the shipping guy is blaming the sales guy, and he thinks the sales guy is blaming the shipping guy. Meanwhile, the production guys are mad at the sales guy because he forgot to order a window, so now he's rushing it, so he's bumping somebody else's order or whatever. It becomes chaos. But it happens all the time in the window business. I'm sure it happens in other businesses too. But if we were just honest about it and took the accountability, then the customer trusts us more. Other departments are willing to do more for us. The problem is that if we're scared that if we do it too many times, we get fired. So nobody really wants to admit it because they're scared of getting fired. And those are the cultures and those are the changes that you need in a company, and that's what Perspective Industries can help you with. A couple of things that we're doing to promote belonging, a program that I'm starting called Find Your Why. I was heavily influenced in 2015 when I found a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek on YouTube, and I really started watching and paying attention to his content. It really spoke to me, and it really helped me shape the teams that I worked on, just by letting people understand that this is why we're doing this. If you're on board, then great. If you're not, then we can move on. And as soon as I started doing that and the people were on board with the purpose, because really at the end of the day, it was their purpose. They came up with it. They thrived. They were top performers in the company. The customers loved them. They got rave reviews, and it was all because they just cared. Over the 23 years working in the window and door industry with the construction industry of Edmonton and Calgary a little bit, working with customers became a key part for me. Working with customers is a lot easier if you have the right expectations set from upfront. So another thing that Perspective Industries can help a company with is being a facilitator between the two companies, between the supplier and the customer, to potentially set up processes, potentially understand expectations, to potentially resolve some minor conflict that might be there right now, and start to rebuild that trust and rebuild that respect between the two companies. It happens in business. We know it does, where somebody lets somebody down and it kind of fractures that. And if that happens too often, it becomes a problem. Well, we can help repair that. It's not unrepairable. One of the other things that I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start posting my perspective, and it's probably going to be a weekly post, just a video talking about my perspective on certain items, certain issues. Obviously, with a sales background, sales operations background, it'll probably be focused on that stuff. I hope that adds some value to some of you. So follow the pages. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And hopefully it'll help you guys with something. I'll talk about different ways to help customers. I'll talk about different things you can do internally to improve yourself. I'll talk about just my perspective on some aspects of how to do a job, how to set up a weekly routine, and maybe it'll add benefit to your day. And if it does, then great. And I'd love to hear comments and feedback from you guys of things that you do and things that help you build teams or build your team. And it'll add value to everybody. And I'll post stuff out there too. If you have videos that you want to share, feel free to send them through to me, and I'll post them out to people as well. I can't come in and promise you that I will increase your revenue by 10 times. I can't promise you any of that stuff. And any consulting company that does promise you that, in my humble opinion, is full of it, because there's nothing that can prove that you will get that. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't, but you can't prove it. And it's, all you can do is try to help. And the intangible benefits of the customer retention, employee retention are going to be the ones that improve your bottom line. So, if these things seem of value to you, then I hope you'll reach out, and I hope we can work together in some fashion. I'm more than happy to help with everything from, just building processes to, if you want team building done, we can work on workshops. There's a lot of different avenues you can do to help a team. And as an outside coach, you can come in and I can take over coaching the whole team, or I can coach individual aspects of the team. If you feel that Perspective Industries can help you, feel free to reach out. You can reach me by cell, you can reach me by email, you can reach me on my website. And I'd love to come in and talk to you about how I might be able to help you. Thanks. Take care.